Hey guys, how's it going? It is Kara here with another Infinite Magicraid video. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Katherine. So this is going to be a guide for Katherine here. I'm going to try to be as comprehensive as I possibly can. Because with Katherine here, everyone gets her. And then she's also one of the few characters you could guarantee you're going to eventually exclusive her out. And with those exclusives, they change her massively. And then she's such a good character, you're going to be using her in a ton of your teams. And the content might require different things. Also, based on which exclusive you have, it's going to change just how good she is and where and how you're going to want to build her. So this is a character that is very situational, and I'm going to try to explain the concepts around it so you can at least apply those to whatever you're trying to face. Because of just how good she is, you're going to need to know this stuff. This is going to really help your progression. Also, just how much she changes based on her exclusives. So let's get into the kit here, and then I'll explain. We're going to go through everything like a typical guide. There'll be timestamps down below if you just want to jump to each one of those things, but probably best to watch it all the way through just because there's a lot of stuff that ties together here when it comes to Katherine. So how we get her, just a super basic ways to get her is going to be campaign quests through here. The big one that is really difficult is going to be beating a dungeon 26. So this is going to be difficult here, but totally possible to do even without Katherine and potentially without a mythic. And then the other way is going to be through campaign. And these are going to be your first two copies for pretty much every single person. Those are going to be your first two copies, whether it be you get Katherine from 3-starring the campaign or from getting it through here. And then the rest of your copies all come from Tower of Mark. Just having as many stars as you possibly can, starting at, I believe, 240. Yeah, 240, and then 280. And that's where I'm currently at. So this is going to take a while to get to. And the first Katherine is amazing. And is going to be a massive changer for your account. And then she just gets better from there. Okay. So how she works. So let's break down our kit. Now that we know how to get her, let's break down our kit here. Where auto attack deals X amount of damage to an enemy, and then the second stage has a 60% chance to inflict feebleness and books up to 100%. And when you see the percentage there, you know you're going to need effect hit, even if it says 100% chance. If it just didn't give you a percentage chance at all, then you would know that you don't need it. Then her A2 here is grants consolidation 2 on all allies for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown when booked. Then her ultimate grants all allies counterattack and a shield of 40% of max HP for 2 turns. Then her passive restores all allies HP by 4.8% of Katherine's max HP at the beginning of each turn. Goes up to a higher percentage there with books. So that is the overall gist of the character here. Mainly, pretty much everything about her kit is awesome. The only lackluster thing would probably be her A2 when you first get her, is the just consolidation 2 on allies. So it just reduces damage by 40%. Okay, and then this is the big thing that you're going to want with her is a shield, massive shield. It's like whim-sized shield and a counterattack, which is super good. And then also when she attacks, she's inflicting feebleness, which is an amazing debuff. So you have 2 massive things there. And then as you exclusive her, she gets better and better. So I would say the first exclusive is the massive game changer. This is when she goes from like pretty much she's already like an A tier, maybe bottom like S minus. This is what puts her to S plus. Is gonna be your exclusive one here, where it cleanses all 1 layer of debuff for every ally at random when burst of energy is triggered. So this is how you kind of want to change her, because when you have her E1 or when you have her E0, you want her to go last because you want this shield to last as long as possible. She's not cleansing anything. Doesn't matter if she goes first or last. But when you have her E1, then she cleanses 1 layer of debuffs. So then it's kind of nice to have her go first. Because what if you get frozen? What if you get stunned? Then her being first on your rotation means that she's just going to cleanse it, and it's all good. So it kind of changes how you want to build her. Because if you played Raid Shadow Legends, she's like the combination of a Doom Priest and a Valkyrie. And those characters conflict in the turn order back in that game. So Valkyrie, counterattack and a shield, but Doom Priest, a cleanse. So the cleanse is something you're going to want to go first, whereas the shield and the counterattack you want to go last. So it just depends on the circumstance, what you care about, and you're going to have to ask yourself on content, what do I want? Do I want her to go first? Do I want to cleanse something? Is that the priority? Or do I want to be able to maximize my counterattack and maximize my shield? Because if she goes first and applies counterattack, what's going to happen is people are going to go before the counterattack can be procced. So then that means they lose a turn of counterattack. But if she goes after everyone, then applies the counterattack, then the boss goes, for example, or all the enemies go, then they save one turn of that counterattack. Also, they save one turn on that shield. So that could be a big factor in determining on how you're going to want to adjust her in your lineup there. And so for the most part, I've been putting her as the fastest ever since I got her E1. But depending on the circumstance, I can see in Guild Boss, for example, this would be something that would be a pretty easy choice to make her go last, because then what happens is you time it up with the boss, then you hit auto, then what will happen is all your characters will go, she'll go last, and then the boss will go in AoE, and then AoE again. So you get 2 turns of it, and you can maximize it. But at the moment, I haven't been messing with it too much, but that would be an example. Also, it's nice to have that for campaign. If you happen to be in the weird situation where you got the first Katherine and then you got the other Katherine, you still need to get the first Katherine in campaign there. You can have her shield and counterattack last. So then what you're doing is you're maximizing the counterattack, so you're not burning turns, and you're not going to be losing your 100 turn thing right there. So that's an example of when you might want to use it. So keep that in mind. But then there's other examples for in Faction Abyss, on stages pretty much starting when it changes to this boss here. There's a lot of bleeds that get applied. It's like bleeds or poisons on the second wave, and having her go first is really nice. So just keep that in mind. So that's where the situations are going to change, and it's not always correct to have her go first. It's not always correct to have her go last. It just depends on the circumstance of what you're playing against. And like, for example, on a lot of bosses, you're going to want her to go at least go before the boss, whether that means she goes first in your rotation or last in the rotation. If she's beating the boss, that's very hard speed requirements. Like, to give you an idea of how speed works in this game, the bosses started... Ifrit's the exception to this. He just has about 1,000 more speed than anyone else. But every other boss, this concept applies to Gwyneth, Rum, Negia, Growlin, and Marius. It applies to all of the bosses in Tower of Mark here, and it applies to all of the bosses in Faction Abyss. That they start, if you take the boss at level 30, so you go all the way down here, level 30, this boss right here is going to have 2,200 speed. Then they're going to go down by 20 speed all the way down. So just whatever stage you're at, just count it down, and then that boss will have that speed. So I like to have my Katherine always beating the boss in speed, because I want her to be able to apply the shield first before the boss goes. So that's another reason why I have her going first, because getting 2,200 speed is very difficult. In my case scenario, this is my best dungeon beat is 28. So that would be what, 2,200, then 2,180, 2,160 right there. So that's the speed requirement I need to beat to be able to beat this and make sure I go before Rum, for example. And that's why she ends up going first. In a perfect world, I would have everyone going before Katherine, and she would still go before the boss. But that's a really hard gear requirement, especially trying to get enough effect hit, enough mastery, enough survivability on like HP burners and stuff to be able to do that. But that is why I have her going as my fastest right now, because I think that's more important than maximizing the shield. Because what's the point of maximizing a shield if the boss is just going to hit you and you probably die from that? And that is very apparent in like really hard Faction Abyss, which I think a lot of people don't care about at this point. But I think all of this, I know this is really in detail, but I think this is an important concept to understand about Katherine. Especially, I think she's the most important character in the game. The whole beginning to middle game is all about getting Katherine, and then afterwards it's all about how you use Katherine. So knowing this is the guide, and then all the other stuff like emblems and whatever is the easy stuff. Okay, so then you get the next big change for Katherine that makes her, like, takes her to what triple S and beyond is going to be her exclusive 3 here. Because exclusive 2 is not bad too. This is still really good. 60% shield. It just goes from a 40% to a 60%, which is awesome. As you can see, I have her at 522,000, so 60% of that is my shield. That's a massive shield. But this is what really takes her to the next level is her exclusive 3 that you're going to be getting through Tower of Mark. So building characters, like building a wide roster, is really important because this is going to keep progressing you further, which now it allows Katherine to gain one more action turn when she releases Solid Guardian. So what this means is this passive here is going to trigger twice. And I was hoping that this would be the case, is it cleanses 2 layers of debuffs now, which is absolutely insane. And is super good literally everywhere. You know, anytime you get a debuff, it is so clutch to have this, especially in Faction Abyss. I've been using this a ton. And there's pretty much any scenario that if you're facing things that provide a lot of AoE debuffs, you're going to want to have Katherine E3, and you're going to really notice the difference there being able to cleanse it all. And then her having that is really nice too. Like there's certain characters that are annoying that apply stuff before you even go. She just cleanses it all the second she goes. Like Tafts, for example, they put the poisons down. She just cleanses it all. I know this would happen at exclusive 1, but at exclusive 3, it's nice. Like let's say he applies something, someone else goes. There's 2 layers of debuffs. As long as one's not like a control one, you're fine because you're just the whole team's gonna be cleansed and healed too. So it's super good there. Also, what this means is that it turns the counterattack from a 4-turn cooldown to a 3-turn cooldown, which is probably the biggest game changer out of all this, let alone just being able to double up on your shield and your consolidation. But it allows you to not only have this massive shield on there, but you could double it up with the consolidation under it, so you're taking even less damage, which is really useful because these dungeons get really, they do a ton of damage. And this is really the only way to survive. I can't think of it. You know, people have been combining Katherine with, for example, what's his name? Nordak here, to be able to survive these super hard dungeons because they just do so much damage. So anything you can get, the better. Also, one thing to keep in mind, this is just a super small thing. A lot of dungeons when I'm autoing them, the first couple waves, you want to make sure she's like ready to go on the second wave. Usually, you always want to have her. This is just a quick tip, I guess. But like you always want to have her shield ready to go on the second wave because that's usually the one that does the most damage. Like especially in like Rum, for example, and I believe in here pretty much every wave they have an easy wave 1, a very hard wave 2, and then the boss, which is just hard because it's the boss. So I would usually ban moves or ban the ultimate on Katherine, but one thing that's it would be kind of nice to have her be able to do the consolidation or whatever. Whereas when she's E3, you can't. Well, what I would do actually is I would have her start with the ult, but then ban it. So it would be a starter move, but then ban. So I knew she would play it, but she wouldn't do it again. You know, have you ever watched those autos where they'll do the ult, but then right before they're killing the last person, they'll just ult again, and then now you don't have it on wave 2. So to prevent that, I would do a starter ult and then ban it. But now when she's exclusive 3, you can't do that move, the starter ban thing, because you want to combo it with your consolidation. So it's like you're doing a starter ban, but then it's only on the ult with no consolidation, and it might screw up your ordering. So just one thing to consider, that little trick goes away there. Okay, so now we have an idea of how Katherine's used, how to use her, like ideas of based on the content, when to use it. Now, or how you're going to use her. Okay, so now let's talk about specifics here. We got the emblems. I just have one set currently because not too much variance here. I would say the things I might change is you could go from speed to tenacity, for example. Maybe even healing effect would be an option. But I would say this is a pretty standard generic build. I'd probably stay away from the attack side. It's really not that useful for her. She doesn't do any damage. And even kind of like, even if you, it's just completely pointless to go attack with her. The main thing, got the HP, you got shield effect, healing effect, just all no-brainer stuff. Feel free to copy this. Selfish is nice. You have the allies less than 50% HP, the healing effect here. Then this one's pretty obvious too, shield effect and healing effect. That's like absolute staple. For targets lower speed than herself, I make sure she's always faster than even the bosses, which are way faster than anyone else. So I get that 9% free effect hit, which is awesome. One of the major benefits of speed. And also think of speed, especially against bosses, as survivability, because you're getting that shield at first, but bosses ramp. So if you don't match their speed, eventually they're going to start not only going twice before you, but then they're going to be doing extra damage. So even if you could get more survivability, but you're not fast as the boss, who cares? The boss is just going to ramp and scale and kill you way faster. A great example of that is Ifrit. Like, good luck being significantly faster than him or not having a speed down or something like that against him, because he's not only super fast, but he ramps and does 1,000,000 damage. So keep that in mind. That's why like I prioritize all this speed here. But also, because she doesn't do any damage, you could prioritize on survivability. And I think the best ones here, got defense, got healed effect, which is nice. And then this one, don't really care about, but these two things that are, yeah, I'm not going to be putting emblems on a character about if an ally dies. You know, like the only thing would be a very, very niche set for faction Abyss, because of just how hard that content is. That'd be it. It'd be a very niche set. But healing there, and then also less damage if a person dies there. Maybe if you have a Luna on your team, you can. I wonder if that works, but I don't think it would transfer between waves. Usually they'll say if it's going to transfer between a wave. And then got the control res there, even though we're not building that much effect res anyway. So like this is just a placeholder basically. One thing I do want to highlight, now that I think about it, Magic Touch right here, I don't do this one because I want everything to be as consistent as possible, because I want her to consolidate her A2 and then do her ultimate in a row. And if you have Magic Touch, you have a 12% chance to maybe the consolidate comes up one turn earlier. Maybe the shield comes up a little bit earlier. So then she'll do that on auto, and then it ruins the combination. She'll consolidate and then auto attack. Then she'll ultimate and then auto attack, which is terrible. So, or she'll consolidate and then auto attack, or she'll just ult and do nothing, because she only gets the bonus turn when she consolidates. So that's why I do not have Magic Touch on here. Also, if I'm going to be trying to do a strategy where I have her go last and put the shield on for counterattack on against a boss, for example, this is going to be something that I would absolutely not want to have on there, because it would ruin the consistency of the build on auto. But this is an amazing thing. Anytime I'm trying to push super hard content, maybe not necessarily for Katherine, but for most characters, Magic Touch really gives you that little extra boost to be able to beat. Maybe you're trying to... I like this for stuff that you can't lose energy for. So like Mark Tower or Faction Abyss, because you can't lose your token there. You can just try it over and over again and go to RNG. So I do like this. Is probably one of my most used ones, but specifically because it's Katherine and because I have her exclusive 3, I don't have this. If you have exclusive 2 and below, I believe this is one of the best things you can get and most impactful the harder the content, because you're really gonna care more on harder content, because you're gonna be looking at all of your cooldowns as they come up. It's like, oh, is it up? And then maybe barely survive because you got it up in time. And then affected, that's a no-brainer. You could argue stuff like this, like chance to remove 1 layer, not control. I just don't like the RNG of it. I like the guaranteed, here's 9 affected. That's hard to get. So I like that a lot. And then 75 speed, I think that's way harder to get than 24% HP. And I think it's way more impactful than 24% HP. If you didn't have one or the other, you're going to feel the speed difference than you are the HP difference. So that is why I went there. But if I don't, maybe as my gear gets better, maybe if I get more speed, then I might want to switch to either healing effect or for max HP, because that's one thing about her, is that she's actually a pretty good healer because of her passive, and that kind of segues into her auras here, because I think this is by far the best aura for her, is Recovery Horn Aura, where it restores all allies HP by 4 to 9% of self max HP after casting active skills. So this is massive. This only applies on her A2 and her A3. Not her auto attack, so keep that in mind. But because she's pairing those, it's essentially she's giving, in my case, a 16% heal to everyone every time. Not only is she 16% heal, it's she has her normal passive, so that's like another 6% there. Then she has Consolidation 2, and she has her ultimate. So massive healing there. that she's providing because of this passive. I feel like this can change a lot of characters. Like you can throw this on a whim, and it's like a ghetto version of Katherine, and then you have he takes multiple turns. Like support characters that take multiple turns really benefit from this, in my opinion, because they lower their own cooldowns. They're going multiple times. They're healing multiple times. Very good passive. This is gonna be something that takes a lot of grinding. I want to say it takes me like a week of doing this, and I was like dumping all of my the gems I would get. It's surprising how many gems you can get free to play in this game, but I was dumping them all into Faction Abyss to be able to do this, and probably been farming this for a month and a half, and then I'm only at 4 stars here. So it is a very expensive aura, but this is the long grind. Nowadays, you can actually disassemble it. Here, let me do this. Disassemble, and so see, you can get it all back. So you can put it on a character here, and you can eventually move it. The thing you're going to be losing out on is this currency here. I think this is a percentage. It's not like the full amount that I used, but everything else you can get back. So don't feel bad if you're going to put it on someone else and then eventually put it back on Katherine. You just have to pay the gems. So I think that is the go-to. I really wouldn't recommend, like maybe if you're just starting out with auras, you could go the healing one. I think that's probably the biggest one, because you get this here, you're going to get the stats to get her healthier. So very easy to be able to get a lot of green ones here. The blue ones, I don't think they're good enough to justify investing in blue ones, because blue ones are actually kind of difficult. Like purple ones obviously are significantly more difficult. Maybe it's worth it, but I would be focusing on like damage dealers. Like for example, mastery here on your burners, because this carries over. Like there's no, because for example, the one I got here, there's no comparison here. There's no like cheaper version of this. This is just, here it is. This is an amazing one, but you only get this at Epic. Whereas you get good value for your damage dealers on blues. So spend all your blues on your attack characters or your HP burn characters, and then what you do is then for this person, you put your epics on Katherine. Okay, and then trying to think what's next. Oh, gear wise, I guess gear would be the last bit. Nothing too crazy. It's just I try to get as much speed as possible on all of my substats, whether that be speed sets, whether it be like ideally it would be these sets here. What are they called? First aid sets. But these are super hard to come by. They only come at, like at the end of those like whale events. So probably not going to have much of these. And you got to choose with that currency to choose between this one, the crit rate one, or this one right here. So this is a difficult one, but she would benefit from all of these: the speed, the effect hit, and the healing effect. So this is probably the top tier one for her. But then I think a more realistic one, feather sets are really good. You get the HP, you get the speed. So that's nice. And then worst case scenario, you just get speed sets. And then ones that roll speed. And I try to get ones that roll speed and HP. And then healing effect is actually kind of nice too. And like this is a great one. Well, here, let me move out of the way showing you this. So see how the speed, defense, this one is speed. And notice how all this stuff is all just blue sets. Like whether that be 6-star blue or 6-star blue here. Like you get good rolled or well rolled blue pieces that are 6-star, or in some cases 5-star. Like they're still really effective. Like they're gonna get you a long way. And then yes, the 5-star legend piece right here. But you know, like imagine if I just had something like, you know, one of these blue 6-star pieces. So maybe this deserves its own video, but you can get a pretty progressed character without too much. Yes, it does take a while to get 6-star pieces, but eventually when you can start getting them, like it's not like you need a 6-star piece and it needs to be epic and it needs to roll well. It's like you can actually make it with like even like green 6-star pieces for a while. It's because they're just such a big difference. So like this is a good one, you know, just double rolled HP. You know, like there's not a single, there's one legendary, but everything else is blue. But that's pretty much it when it comes to this. Ideally, the speed, like I talked about, based on the content, but for the most part, the effect hit can be as high as you want it to go. I only have it at 54%, but you want it to go higher. I prioritize the speed more and the HP more in these case scenarios, and then you can change your gear based on the content. Like you don't really care too much about survivability if it's clan boss, but you really care about survivability if you're trying to push hard, like Tower of Mark or Faction Abyss, for example, or Arena. So she's a very versatile character. You can there's a million different ways to build a gear her. This is like a very comprehensive all-arounder, but maybe I'll do videos that are a little bit more targeted, that are not as long, that will cover a more specific version of her. So that's pretty much it when it comes to this video on Katherine. Kind of a long one, but I think there's a lot of information here that hopefully was helpful. And with that, guys, I'm out of here. Peace.